Special Forces ready.
Welcome to the Tier 1 Podcast.
This is amazing, dude. Check this out, right?
Welcome back to the Tier 1 Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Tucker, owner of First Responder Coffee, Cigar, and Cask Company. Go to FRCC.shop and use promo code FRCC15 to get 15% off your world's best coffee, cigars, and bourbon. And as always, this episode is brought to you by Human Performance TRT. Go to HP-TRT and use promo code Tier 1 to get 20% off all of your testosterone and peptide needs. With us today, we have Dan Bilzerian. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I really wish it was easier to pack up the studio because you offered to do it at your house. I really would have liked to gone and done it at the house. It seems like a cool setting, and it was a really gracious offer for you as well. You don't really know me, but I think there is and we haven't really talked about it. We'll talk about it now. I believe it had to do with a little bit of a veteran to veteran kind of handout, if you will.
Well,
but,
I saw you kind of like calling out some of the guys and spreading some truth, and I knew you're a CAG guy, you know. So as a vet, that carries a lot of weight. So
I appreciate that. I have a spot reserved for this again. This a little bit later, and that I do believe that viewpoint we share, that the truth matters, and the truth isn't always well accepted by people. And you, even with the things we've done with holding vets accountable, we've proven to be right every time because we did our due diligence. But the initial pushback on that was heavy. And we got, we had some people that believed us and some people who, couldn't believe, how dare we say such things. But telling the truth isn't, it's not glorious all the time. And I think you've also paid the price for that. Even though we'll say this to some degree, the truth can be subjective. I understand your want for a slight pushback on that, but time almost always decides whether it was a worthy cause or not. I don't think you can hide the truth forever.
yeah, I mean, we've seen that a lot more recently too. I feel like people are kind of like waking up to what's going on in the world, and it seems like we're getting more clarity. People are being exposed. Bullshit's coming out.
Yep, and the pendulum is swinging politically, and you can hide the truth for a little bit. And I'm sure some of the truth has been hidden, permanently from us. So I don't even know if I'd be as naive to say it always comes out, but thankfully, with a shift in power becomes a shift in focus and what's right. And in fact, the first thing I'm thinking about, so I'll just talk about it. Like the Epstein files didn't seem to be a big focus under the Biden administration of getting them out. Then Trump ran on him, and then ironically enough, didn't really do anything.
Well, now
with
it's a hoax, right? He runs on this as like, I'm going to release this. His son talks about it, and then, when he finds out he's in there, it's like all of a sudden now it's a hoax, and we're supposed to believe that.
So I try to look at things objectively. I really do. And I try to look at things from as unbiasedly as I can from both sides. And a part of me doesn't like how that looks. And I could definitely see like, well, that doesn't look or even feel right to some degree. But another part of me is like, well, that's also sometimes what happens when you get into power. And I don't even mean in a bad way. Everyone else can believe that this is true because it's hidden from you. And when things are hidden from you, you when there's, kind of like we say in the military, when there's a lack of intelligence, Joe will fill it. So have we created this monster of it's definitely there? But then I go, why, off of what? Why did we believe that there was a list to begin with? And did he get into power and then kind of find out, oh, well, I kind of got into the circular reporting like everyone else. And now that I'm in charge and I see it, well, it just wasn't something that I thought it was.
I mean, I guess that's possible, but they did find like hundreds and hundreds of hours of this stuff. They've got witnesses that have come forward. I mean, they arrested Epstein and Ghislaine for some reason, right? Like she got convicted on something,
I know.
The idea that there wasn't any other ties with all these powerful people going down there and all these hours of footage of which they say is all child pornography. Like, somebody had to be having sex with the kids. Like, there's something behind this. And here's my thing. If I could have my own brother in office, or I could have somebody that I have a video of them fucking a 12-year-old boy, and my goal was to control, I would put the 12-year-old boy guy in there every time because he's going to do everything I tell him to do till the day he dies.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, right? And it's got Mossad, fingerprints all over it. You've got all these famous people going down there. And to me, I think it's pretty obvious what's going on. I think he's on there. I think his donors are on there. At a minimum, his donors, somebody, like, there is a cover-up going on. And I think that's where his base started to turn on him.
I think it is, even though, I said what I said. I stand by what I said because I don't know. And I see validity in both sides, and until more, comes out, I'll keep from having a firm or a firmer stance on it. But I'll tell you what, where there's smoke, there's fire. And it just doesn't pass the sniff test. Here at the Tier 1 Podcast, we're excited to have Tasty Gains as a sponsor, a company with values that aligns with ours. I take their products every day, 3 times a day. And if it wasn't a product that I didn't take personally and believe in, and a company with integrity, then they wouldn't be sponsors on this show. Creatine helps the body produce more ATP, which is an energy molecule that your entire body runs on. It helps improve your physical and mental performance in all aspects of life. Let's be honest, creatine powder sucks to take every day. With the creatine gummies, you can take them with you anywhere and they taste great. Every batch is third-party tested, so you know you're getting exactly what you pay for. Go to tastygains.com and enter the promo code Tier1, that's TIER, the number 1, and get 20% off your order. Kind of almost want to, it'll be more topical, but topical with a little bit of a hybrid of chronological order as well. And I really wanted to start earlier in your adult life with the military. I've seen you on podcasts talk about the military. I've seen the comment section and other people say things about even calling you out for not serving, or Dad said he was in the Navy. And I actually saw those things later after, hearing your story in the Navy. And I'm like, where does that even come from? That's a little crazy. But you're proud of your service and being a vet. And I think you should be.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, like, I didn't go in there for patriotic reasons. I went in because it was my best option. I thought if I became a Navy SEAL, people would respect me. I'd get laid. Like, right. It was all the wrong reasons.
What were your options if you had to lay about?
It was that or community college.
Okay.
Because I got thrown in jail. So,
okay.
Yeah, that was kind of it. I thought that.
What'd you get thrown in jail for?
I had a machine gun in my car. I kind of frown on that a little bit. So this is going to be a reoccurring theme throughout this interview. You and guns and explosives have had a history that goes way back, I see. Yeah. I think I got my first gun at like 5 or something. So.
Okay. All right. My research did not dig that up, so that was news to me.
Yeah. So I went in and. My dad was in the military. He did Vietnam, and that was kind of what got him into Harvard. And he as a high school dropout. And so I figured that would be my path. And
Yeah.
I thought that if I became a Navy SEAL that, you know, girls would want to have sex with me, guys would respect. It would like fix any problem that I had. And so I think there was a driver there that was pretty strong, you know. It was just, and it was one of those things where like I would have died before I quit.
I believe that.
But it wasn't because I was so tough. It wasn't because, you know, I really wanted to be a SEAL really bad. It was just because I didn't have a better option. I really thought that would, you know, like solve all my problems.
Yeah, it's really funny what'll drive a man. Like it really is. And sometimes men are driven from pivotal stuff. Being looked, respect women. Yeah. At the end of the day, those are pivotal things in the grand scheme of things. Other people are driven in the military or special operations because they feel like their back's against the wall. You know, and it's a last ditch effort for whatever reason. My whole point is this: it doesn't always seem to. The greater cause isn't always what makes someone stay in the course. It's not the greater altruistic cause. It's how important is that cause to that man. And which is ironic, if girls and respect or whatever it was to you, if that cause is really important to you, even though it's not the, say it almost a bad way to say it, the most respectable causes.
Yeah.
If that's what drives you and that's what's important to you, that man will never quit.
Yeah, I was talking to Goggins about this, and like I think insecurity is one of the most powerful drivers. You know, I really believe that. I think there's like very few Pat Tillmans in the world that just kind of like, do it for like the guy's like a fucking stud football player, just gives it all up for his country. I mean, it's certainly admirable and respectable. I just think that's kind of like the outlier. Yeah.
I would even say that's true in my own career to some degree. I think what drives someone is always rarely is it just one thing. It's usually a combination of several things, and within the combination of things that drove me into the military, into the Green Berets, into the Delta Force, there was a sprinkle of insecurity, and to prove to everyone that I am that man. Yeah. You don't think I am, but I'm going to prove it to you. Wasn't my main driver, but absolutely that was in there.
I think you have to care about some of that. And I remember there was a guy
took Napoleon pretty far.
Yeah. I think he owned Van Dutch or something, and I just remember he showed up and he had like a brand new it's like some kind of convertible Mustang, and there was like two hot chicks in there, and we were like, damn, this dude's a stud, right? Like he's what I would envision a Navy SEAL is.
Yeah.
And he quit in like the first day, But like, it wasn't probably because he wasn't tough. It was just like he had so much to leave for. Like if he quit, now he's getting pussy. Like he's still rich. He's got a penthouse.
Yeah.
Like if I quit, I'm on a fucking ship and I'm back to being a loser. And you know what I'm saying?
That's
like
absolutely true.
So like
that's absolutely true.
I think it becomes harder if you have a really good like backup option.
Yeah.
I think it also becomes easier when it matters a lot.
I also was a little bit of a late bloomer physically. And I had to go through things in sports and in life. Hell, just in life, having to stand up to bullies, having to work twice as hard at sports to be just as good as other kids that were just 6 inches taller than me and 40 pounds heavier than me naturally, and trying to compete with those guys. I think I can't count how many times I saw what you would think, like you were talking about, people show up to a selection process and like, damn, that's an impressive man. We'll be seeing him at the end, and they're one of the first people to quit. And one of my theories are they don't have enough adversity in life.
Yes.
I believe, and this is generality, but they were big and tough, or presumed tough their whole life, and no one ever challenged them.
Yeah.
I had to get challenged my whole life, And so getting challenged again and having to prove myself again was just something I was used to.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's, definitely a driver. A lot of the guys that I would have picked, that I would have said would have made it, didn't.
Yep.
And vice versa.
Yep, absolutely. What was, did you go straight to buds, or you had a, well, I don't want to use Army terms, an MOS, a rate?
Yeah, quartermaster. So I did A school, boot camp, then A school.
Right.
And I like got stress fractures during A school. And so basically they put me on limited duty. And I was trying to catch up for the fact that I had never ran 2 miles my whole life. So I was definitely unprepared going in. And I tried to do way more than I should during A school when I got out of boot camp. And I got stress fractures. And my detailer basically, he put me on, or the medical guy put me on limited duty. And the detailer said, you can go to a ship 2 years and then go to buds, or I can clear you right now and you can go.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, fuck, I'm not going to make it if I have stress fractures, but maybe I can go there and get rolled and then, go into the next class. It's like, that's, better option. So that's what I did. The basis said, fuck you. I requested captain's mast, went up to the top, and he allowed me to train. And 3 weeks after Hell Week, I was just too fucked up. They actually gave me a medical roll, but then dropped me. Kind of a long story. I put in a request to do off-base housing, and they somehow approved it. So when you are rollback, you stand watch every day, which technically puts you on duty 24 hours a day, which means you can't leave the base. I lived off base. It was So anyways, I went out to the fleet, and then they're going to kick me out of the Navy. My legs were so fucked up. They actually gave me it was like a retirement or whatever.
Right.
It took them so fucking long to process it that I put in a request to go back. And it was it's like a whole thing. My, OIC calls me in. He's like, how fucking stupid we're going to look. You're about to be medically retired from the Navy. You want to go to buds. How,
Right. You can't be both.
It was ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah. He's like, get the fuck out of my office. One of those things. And I had to call in a favor, got back. And then this time it was way different. Now I'm in good shape. I was taking steroids, a whole different animal. Make it one day before graduation, roll me back to the beginning, do the whole fucking thing again, and then they kick me out. So it was, bad result. But
how many days? I don't know if you swag this. Were you in SEAL training for?
So if you count PTR and INDOC, it was around 510 days, which is fucking crazy.
Right. That is there's a long time. To go after what you wanted, man. And when I hear that story, what really stands out to me of that story is a man who really wanted it, and you became successful later. But there were indicators earlier on in your life that you would tenaciously go after something that you wanted.
Yeah, I actually think it was probably a blessing, because I think if I would have graduated or hung my hat on that, that would have been enough. And so because I had that monkey on my back for a while, I think that drove me too.
How did you, the second time you didn't make it, I'm assuming mentally you're starting to realize that the dream's over.
Yeah.
For that phase in life.
Well, the third time.
Or the third time.
It was the nail in the coffin, but yeah. It was one of those things where I didn't think they could actually kick me out. I thought that I had to quit or fail something. I didn't think they could kick me out just because they thought I was a fucking jackass. Right. But they had that arrow in their quiver. And
I didn't know you could do that.
I didn't. I was like, I thought I had to quit or fail something. I didn't think you could just be like, get the fuck out of here.
So the third time, because it was your third time, was it easier to accept, or was it still kind of hard to accept that it's over? Or were you at that point, because it was such a long process for you, were you ready to move on?
I was so physically and mentally beat down, I think, by the third time. And also for me, a part of it was too, I didn't care about the job. I was more doing it to prove it. And a part of me felt like I'd proved it to myself,
right?
Too. So it was it was easier to, I think, walk away from it just being like, well, fuck, I did it, but I'm not going to get the credit, but I know kind of thing.
Was there an IED story at all? Something happened with an IED? This is where I was going to ask you this one. I was like, let me ask you some things beforehand. This is the one that jumped out to me. I was like, let me make sure this is true before I ask him. But I missed
no
it.
ID for me, but I got a safety violation. That was like a big one. So basically, we were on the range, and they gave the order to about face and drop down.
Okay.
Which meant that the half the class that was on the range was pointing their weapons at the instructors. All but like two guys. We just they give an order, you just fucking do it, right? You're not like,
Right.
oh, but what about this? They say it and you do it.
Yeah.
So that half got safety violations, and it was one of those things when I was in the meeting. You kind of like, I mean, looking back, I would have said, hey, fucking half my class got safety violations. Like, this other one was, I was, sleeping on the range, but, we were off and, most of the class was doing it.
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal. But at the time, you're just like, yes, sir, this is what I did, And so for the OIC, hearing like this fucking idiot's pointed his gun at instructors and he's sleeping on the range, you look like a jackass. But
Right.
in the context, yeah, it wasn't so bad.
So when you got out, what was your next week? I mean, you have decisions to make.
Yeah, then I went to college.
And why?
So-
And why college from there?
Well, that was always kind of the plan.
I was about to say it was one of your two options originally. Anyway,
Yeah,
so.
this was now a good college, so I got into that.
Where'd you go?
University of Florida.
Oh, nice. I'm a big Gator fan.
Yeah.
Very cool. The would you go in there to? Would you want to get your degree in?
Well, started business, and then I switched to doing criminology as well. I didn't actually graduate. I was making a ton of money in poker, so I actually dropped out my fourth year. But,
So at some point, we're gonna get into are these true stories?
what's that?
Was essentially your last day in college. You got into I don't want to call it an argument or a disagreement with your professor. And you'd won enough money, and you're like, I don't need this.
To be honest, that was like one of the high points of my life.
So I glossed over it because just to make sure it's real. Tell us that story.
So I'm in class, and I'd made around $400,000 that month playing poker, and hadn't slept a bunch. I was playing a lot, and this professor kind of popped off to me, and I just was not in the mood to take his shit. And I basically told him that, and we kind of like went back and forth, and he said basically like, well, if you're so fucking rich, what are you doing in here? And I was, thought about it for a second. I was like, yeah, you know what? That's the first intelligent thing you've said all semester. Go fuck yourself. And like literally walked out the door.
Yeah.
And I remember driving the car home, and I was like, holy fuck. Like I finally got to tell my professor to go fuck himself. I can do whatever I wanted. Like I kind of had this invisible chain because the GI Bill was paying me some money, and I felt like I should go to college, but
Right.
I hadn't really like stopped and looked at it. Like I really didn't need a degree at that point.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the most like, I don't know, liberating moments for me because I felt like I could just do whatever I wanted to do.
When did the almost want to call it addiction? When did the poker addiction start?
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, gambling's really addictive. And my brother taught me how to play. And yeah, I was hooked. Like ever since I got out of the military, there wasn't really like an adrenaline spike like gambling would give you.
Yeah.
Something about going broke or making a bunch of money, in a very short period of time that just kind of spikes it. And
Did you play in the military as well?
No, not at all.
Okay, not at all.
Not at all. No.
Okay. Overseas, I had at every base, in combat, there'd always be because you're really not supposed to gamble, but
Yeah.
and especially drink. But all the poker players would find each other, and they'd find alcohol, and they'd find some dark, almost out of a movie, shady backroom place to go smoke, drink, and play poker. And in fact, this is a weird story, but I'll tell it. We'll say one of my guys on my team, he won enough money. He came back and bought his wife a set of fake boobs off of his poker winnings. So it's I had a girl at the time that looked at me and goes, "Well, why didn't you play poker? You could have bought me boobs." I was like, no, because then Mark would have came back with $5,000 more if I'd have played poker. I'm not good at gambling, and I also have an addictive personality. So the good thing about me is if I'm not really good at something, like right off the bat, I usually just drop it out of frustration and then go do something I'm good at to make myself feel better about myself.
Yeah, they say the worst thing that can happen to you in gambling is to like go out and have a big win right off the bat.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because then that's like in your mind of like what could be, you know?
Yeah. And in fact, the only time I've won money gambling is it was my girlfriend Devin was over my shoulder telling me exactly what to do every time. That was the only time I've won money gambling. It's embarrassing to say, but it's true.
I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where poker is like one of the few gambling options that has a lot of skill. Everything else is kind of, you know, you're flipping quarters, and if you get lucky, then you kind of remember getting lucky.
Right.
I think that's what keeps people, you know, running the slot machine so long, is they just remember that win.
How'd you get? It's almost a hard question to ask. How'd you get good at poker? Was it something when I say that? Is it something you self-learned by watching, patterns and recognition, or is it at some point you were pretty good at it and then you started studying it? To get better? Like what was the progression of your?
Yeah, it was a combination of those things. So basically, when I started playing online and I was playing 10 tables at once and I was seeing 100 hands an hour per table, and I would see 10,000 hands in one night of playing poker versus you play live, you see 20 hands an hour over 10 hours, 200 hands. So you're seeing basically almost a lifetime of hands every night that you play. And when I started doing that and seeing the volume, that kind of corrected mistakes faster. But it wasn't until I actually like fully went broke that I was able to play better, because I was always erring on the side of being a maniac and bluffing. And if I had money in the pot, I just wanted to fucking win it. And that's good to have in moderation. Like that's what most people were lacking in poker, was that like ability to just fucking send it in if they sense weakness. I just did it too much. And so when I went broke, it forced me to have self-control. And so that's a winning strategy. It's good. Like you want to be aggressive. So in poker, I mean, you have two fucking cards, right? So the other guy's going to miss the flop 66% of the time. So if you're just constantly betting, you're just going to pick up so many pots uncontested. And then in that 33% of the time when he has a hand, you also could have a better hand. And then you really get all of his money. So you're getting like, mathematically, you're just picking up all these pots. And then also, it's very hard for him to read you, right? Because if you call me, and there's one club on the board and and it's it's a deuce and you've got say a 5-3, you're not going to call me with a 5-3. But now the turn is a 4 and the river's an ace of clubs, and now you could have a straight flush if you were the better, but not if you're the caller, because the caller's never calling that flop. Yeah. So as the aggressor, as the better, this guy can think that he's trapping you, and then you can back into like crazy hands that he could never have.
Right.
So your range can be wider. There's like a lot of things, without going down the rabbit hole, but there's a lot of skill in poker.
It's fascinating. I love the statistics of it. I love things where aggressiveness is rewarded. Yeah. And like you said, and like anything, being too aggressive should never be completely rewarded either, because there's no real strategy in that. If just F it, send it is your strategy. It doesn't matter if it's poker or war. It will, and to be honest with you, it should come back to bite you. It's funny as you're saying that. There's just a lot of parallels in that. The night I got shot, I was too aggressive for too long and didn't get a good reset to hey, like that's you can't always send it. Sometimes
it's good when you live and you get to learn that lesson. in gambling, you get broke, and then usually there's ways to learn. Sometimes they're less forgiving than others. Your sport is less forgiving.
It is a less. When you made $400,000 in poker, but while you're in college, is that online gambling?
All online, yeah.
Really? How much did you start out with?
So at the time, those were playing only 3 tables of a $2,000 max buy-in. That's why that was so crazy. So I was playing like guys heads up, which increases the variance and increases the amount that you can win. But yeah, that was back in the day, it's so different now. Like back then, they had a sports book that had a poker room attached to it. It was called Bodog. So you had all these fucking crazy sports bettors that would just wander into the poker room and now blow all their losses. You just don't really have that anymore. Like back then, you had the ability to make so much money, and there wasn't that many good players. The game wasn't solved. It was just kind of like the right place, the right time.
That's where you got your money from is a little bit leading into this. There's some people who say online, of course, I just want to do this respectfully, but it's part of the story.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, well, Dan's story isn't that impressive. I mean, he got all his money from his dad, and his dad was rich, and so he's just a rich kid doing rich guy things.
Yeah, I think that's what most people think, and I can't even be mad at it, honestly, because that's what got me into these games. Like that's what got me into the Hollywood games. If I didn't have like that rich parent backstory, I wouldn't have gotten into some of the games that I got into probably. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't argue it, and I definitely leveraged it. So I can't be upset if people think what I was basically hoping they would think.
Right.
And encouraging them to think as well. Because I did have a trust fund. It just didn't kick in until I was 35.
Okay.
But look, I'm not asking for a feather in my cap for my gambling winnings. I've never really wanted to brag about that. It just, after I quit poker, I didn't really care anymore.
Yeah.
But I would have much rather it be given to me. In fact, I remember the happiest win I ever had was when I had 25% of Rick Solomon when he played Andy Beal, and he won $42 million in a night, and I got 10 and a half, or it was 10.5 million of the 42 is my 25%. And I woke up to a text like, we win 42, you get 10.5.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have any stress. Like my biggest downside would be I lost $1.5 million if we all put in my 25% was $1.5 million, which was, or 1.2, whatever it was, but we had a $5 million bankroll. I took 25% of that. And it was just, I don't know, it felt so much better than when I won, 10 or 11 or $12 million myself playing because I had played for 14 hours. My, adrenaline was fucking shot. Like my cortisol levels were all time high. Like, I don't know. You just leave the game. You just kind of feel like a zombie. And it's like, it's great that you won, but it felt so much better to just wake up to that text.
Right.
And money all spends the same.
That's right.
I didn't give a fuck. Like I would have been a lot richer if I got a bunch of money from my dad for sure. But
was some of that caught up in legal issues as well?
It was supposed to be a lot. So my trust fund initially was $100 million.
Yeah.
It was in stock that the government also had stock of. And then I had to sign over a third of my trust fund to get my dad out of jail when I was in the military. And they dumped all that stock. And so, it just became progressively worth less and less and less. Then when I finally sold it, I think it was like, I don't know, $1 million, $2 million. It was like inconsequential.
Compared to what you've already earned.
Well, I'd made like $50 million that
Yeah.
year playing poker. So,
Yeah.
and I had guys that were making me money. I was making money in a sports book. I had 30% free roll on this guy betting $100,000 a game. He was betting like 10 games at a time, and I couldn't lose. I got 30% free roll on his wins. I think we clipped the casino for like $17 million before they cut us off. And I had a guy in China that was over there making money in Macau when they first opened up. He was this Asian kid pro. We put it in the fucking games. He was winning us tons of money. So I just had it coming in from everywhere. And by the time I got the trust fund, it just didn't even cover the jet fuel for that year.
Yeah. Are most of your earnings at this time, we're just talking about, crazy numbers, double digits in the millions. Are they won at casinos, or is it still to online gambling, or just a variety of ways it's coming in through sports bet and gambling?
I would say like maybe 10 to 15 million in the casino.
Okay.
Almost all of it was private games. And I posted the wire transfers too. You know, like
I've seen those before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I asked that because, and that kind of goes, they're private games. So the casino, I was going to ask if do casinos not like you? Do casinos like you? But because I guess it's different because they're won in private games.
The thing about poker is they don't make that much money off us. No matter how big we play, it's like $150 a half an hour, $150 an hour per person. It's like such a tiny amount of money for the casino. The reason they do it is because we wander into the fucking blackjack and baccarat rooms, and we can lose big numbers there. But the poker room isn't like a huge money. It's a steady money maker, but it's nothing to write home about.
I read somewhere in your early days, to back up just a little bit, were you living in a like a no air conditioned warehouse in LA?
Oh no. LA, I had a really nice house, but I was renting it. I was always renting my LA house.
Okay. Yeah. And this is why I'm really glad that I'm getting a chance to ask you some of these questions and just dispel things that either what people believe you did, what you didn't do, what they read online. It is pretty crazy. You would think at this day and age, I do. I think most people believe what they Google. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's almost always right. But for whatever reason, with you, and I think maybe it's just because there's so many different people, writing about you. It's harder to pin it down. How about this story? Banned from a Vegas gun range for too much explosives.
No. In fact,
Really, I thought that was. I was like, that would probably sounds legit.
I mean, I look back at like the big headlines that I had. I was like, Dan throws porn star off the roof. I'm just like chucking bitches off the roof on a Thursday. Like that's something to do. Like that was a Hustler photo shoot. They asked me to fucking throw this girl off. And some porn star was super excited about the opportunity. In fact, they wanted me to like throw her over my head like some like really dangerous thing. And I was like, no, let's just do it like this. And she was all excited. And the only thing she had to do was not hold on to my fucking shirt. And we even did like a dry run. And what does she do? The moment I go to throw her, she fucking grabs my shirt, rips an 8-inch circle out of the middle of my shirt, not even on the seam, almost pulls me to my fucking death. And then she barely clips her foot. And, then the story is that I'm just throwing girls off the roof like on a fucking Saturday, and then what you're talking about was, Dan Bilzerian arrested at LAX on federal bomb making charges, like I'm like there blowing up the airport according to these fucking guys. The truth of the matter was I blew up my own semi truck in Vegas 3 weeks before, and I was there on my own fucking plane that I owned that I wasn't going to blow up at the fucking airport coming back from like the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And so, you read these headlines and it's just so misleading. I mean, it was like, I blew up a semi truck, but I owned it, and it was and it was 100 pounds of explosives, but it was tannerite that you could buy at like the fucking Bass Pro Shop.
Right.
The equivalent was like 60 pounds of C4, they said, and the cop was like 7 miles away, and he felt the fucking impact in his chest in the police station. I mean, it was legit. I mean, the fucking engine block went into the stratosphere. It looked like a fucking, missile going up, and there was a visible shock wave.
Yeah.
But once again, it was my truck. It wasn't at the fucking airport. The explosives were all legal. So yeah, you look at some of these things. But look, man, I was hustling too, so back in like 2011, I had a penthouse apartment in Vegas that was like 5,200 square feet. I was paying like $7,000 a month. Then in San Diego, there's like a 20-something million house, fucking sickest thing you've ever seen. Looked like the Iron Man 2 house or whatever, like on the edge of a cliff in La Jolla, like sick.
Yeah.
But I go to a party, and I'm like talking to the guy that, he owns a house or rents a house or whatever. It was his place. And I'm like, what are you paying for this motherfucker? This is sick. Like, would you, because he said he was renting it. I was like, what are you paying? He's like, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. And I was like $50,000 a month. Like, I'm thinking higher.
Right.
He's like, no, you'd never believe it. And this guy was paying, it was like, I don't know, like $3,000 a month or some like crazy low figure.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, fuck. And he's like, yeah, I'm only here like 1 or 2 days out of the month. And I'm like, dude, like, can I chop it with you? Like, you know, and he's like, I don't really need $1,500. I'm like, okay, but what if I bought a bunch of furniture and I left some cool cars here, and I worked out a deal with this guy where we split that house, and then we split an LA house, and we split the LA house 3 ways. So I had another buddy of mine that I ran poker games with, and it was me, him, and this guy that I was splitting the San Diego house with, chopping, I want to say it was like $40K a month. The LA house it was like Richard Gere's old house. It was cool.
Okay.
But we made that in one night having a poker game.
Yeah.
Like just on the tips. So that house was free, basically, and we were making money. The San Diego house, I paid $1,500 fucking dollars a month.
Yeah, that's insane.
Which insane, right? Well, I mean, we put in like $100K of furniture and we chopped all this stuff. But it was, now this house is badass. He left a Ferrari there. I had a fucking Shelby, a 70s Land Cruiser, like we had badass cars. So I'm living like I got hundreds of millions of dollars. I maybe had $3 million in the bank, but I look on the surface like the fucking richest guy ever. I got the sickest houses and all the fucking cool places, having a poker game. I got all these hot chicks too because I'm like, casting for this game. But these girls are making me money because we get 50% of their tips. They're getting tipped out like $5,000 chips.
Yeah.
So we're making money, and I got the hottest girls in LA like begging to be a part of this poker game because they're making so much fucking money every night, and they're still making us money. And and that was kind of the hustle, like I look like I'm super rich. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm also making a lot of money, but that got me into like the billionaire game. And that I beat one guy for $42 million in his house. I beat another guy for like $10 million. So that's like the big wins were not because I was such a great fucking poker player. I didn't win some big fucking tournament. Like I got into a really good spot.
Yeah.
And that was the piece of poker that a lot of guys miss. It's like it wasn't about who is the fucking best player. In poker, your bank account is a scoreboard. It's like who makes the most fucking money. And I made the most money in poker probably, there's some people that have made more, but not too many.
Yeah.
And like I said, it wasn't because I was the best, but like part of poker is understanding like how people perceive you. If you're perceived as being a really great poker player, people aren't going to fucking invite you back. So you can't win too much. You got to give action. There's like a whole formula to this shit.
Right. How's that
And
for
you have to have
the irony of it?
What's that?
How's that for irony of it? You actually can't be too good.
Yeah.
Because if you're too good, you just crush everyone.
Yeah,
your watering hole dries up.
Exactly. You can shear a sheep many times. You can only skin them once. So.
Guys, if you've ever taken one of my tactical classes, I'm a huge fan of white lights. You can't hit what you can't see. And the same goes for the bad guys. Why wouldn't you want to put hundreds, if not thousands of lumens into a bad guy's face? Why would you want him to get a good sight picture back at you? And because of this, we've partnered with Cloud Defensive, the best in the game for both quality and pricing on weapons and handheld flashlights. Their products set the standard for excellence in illumination, ensuring that you're always equipped for success. So go to clouddefensive.com and use promo code Tier1 to get 15% off your next purchase.
So
Is that the was that the beginning of kind of what you were telling me about having? I mean, it looks like I'm living this billionaire lifestyle, but
the start.
Was that the start of the Instagram like lifestyle brand? Where did that come about? And you were kind of in the beginning of that.
I'll tell you exactly where that came about.
Yeah.
That came about from a girl that I was dating that was a Playboy playmate that had like 100,000 followers that kept throwing that in my fucking face. So that was kind of like a fuck you to her.
Yeah.
After we broke up because she wanted to choose like modeling in LA over our relationship.
Okay.
Which really hurt because we were together for like 2 years and she was definitely the hottest chick I'd ever been with.
Like, oh, that's important to you? Okay.
Oh yeah, and she was smart too. It was like the whole thing. And I was like, okay, that was like my Gatsby thing. Like, I'll show this chick. And it's funny, man. Like, flash forward 4 years later, she's like on a photo shoot, and her like the photographer's like, "Oh, have you ever seen this guy Dan Bilzerian? Like, do the pose more like his girl." She walked off that shoot and told him to go fuck himself.
I love it. But, I can be a little bit petty too. I can be a little bit petty. Yeah, I gotta fight that sometimes. So,
but if you look at a lot of my success, it was like fueled by either insecurity or pettiness or whatever. Well, whatever.
Oh man, that kind of takes us to the next part because obviously you were on a roll. As far as good times and perceptions. I mean, at this point, you have money, you have women, you have fame. Like you literally, and it's so crazy because I mean, take the money away from it, but what you wanted from the SEALs of all things,
ironic, yeah,
poker gives you a card game. Like I don't even. I almost said something I don't necessarily mean because I almost said something not very manly. But of course, poker is not revered as not manly. But in comparison, for sure,
voices,
in comparison.
Well, if you would have asked me too before, like I would have been like, being a SEAL would get me way more girls and all this stuff. And it flashed forward like 4 or 5 years. I'm at a party with a buddy of mine that he's my swim buddy in Buds, and now he's a Navy SEAL, and I'm like introducing him to this hot chick, like, hey. This guy's a Navy SEAL, and I like emphasize that. 2 minutes later, she's like, "Oh yeah, how your friend the Marine?" And it's funny, man. Like in that moment, it really clicked. Like girls don't give a fuck about a lot of that. Like all the things that men really care about, like. Dude, if you told me you could bench press 405, I'd be like, damn, that's fucking impressive. But you tell that to a chick and she's like, fucking meathead.
Isn't that the truth?
It's a total polar opposite. All the shit they care about and think guys will be impressed with, like some fucking Hermes purse, like, she's a whore. Her nails are done. Okay, she's high maintenance. All the stuff
exactly.
It just impresses other girls.
Right.
And then all the stuff for guys that we really give a shit about and think girls care about just impresses other fucking dudes.
Yeah, I'll put you on the spot. I don't know if because it just reminds me this morning when we were getting ready. Do you remember the name of that song that you were playing in the bathroom? Girls don't like guys. Girls don't like boys. They like money and cars. Yeah. What's the name of that song? Girls. What's the lyrics?
Girls don't like boys. Girls like cars and money.
Yeah, girls don't like boys. They like cars and money. Yeah. There's a little bit of truth to that, not for the right reasons, and I think it took you. A decade to figure that out. You had a lot of. I won't take away the fact that I think you had a lot. And you've said this. You had a lot of fun in that decade.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think it is one of those almost cautionary tales of be careful what you wish for, or be careful what you think makes you happy, because it may not.
It's heroin. Heroin's fun. Like if I shoot you up with heroin right now, you're gonna feel great, but it's not the answer. Just like pleasure-seeking, hedonism, all that stuff, it's fucking heroin. Like, it feels great, but it's just, like, not going to lead to long-term happiness. And if you chase all those things, there's, like I've said this many times, there's never enough. There's never enough girls. I was fucking four times a day, every day, maxed out on Cialis, maxed out on testosterone, and I was still, like, trying to get more. It's just like, all my billionaire friends, they want to make more money. When you chase those things, you're just never going to feel like you're satisfied. It's funny. I was actually talking about Tim Kennedy the other day, and I know this is a totally fucking off-topic thing, but you covered him, and I was discussing with my friend because I was actually, it was Jake, because we were talking. And he was like, "Yeah, Tim's my friend," and this. It was kind of like he didn't understand why, right? Because like on the outside looking at this, like, okay, here's a guy that's fucking fought in the UFC at the highest level, like a fucking stud by any measure,
right?
Why would this guy lie? And I think what happens is, part of it's playing a character, and a part of it is also like trying to live up to the perception of what other people think that you should be.
Absolutely.
And when everybody thinks that you're like a superhero, and that, you're a badass, but you're not a superhero, right? Like none of us are fucking Superman. And, it's one of the things that I realized too is when what you think you should be doesn't match up to who you are. It doesn't matter how badass or great you are. You're not going to have true confidence.
Absolutely.
So, and the problem with chasing these hedonistic things is that you're never going to feel like you are at the top of the mountain. Like, bro, I was on a 300-foot yacht with 30 chicks like cutting throats to bang me. And I was just like, not enough, like more, it was just always more. And so I actually became more confident with less, because once I like got off the hedonistic treadmill, because I remember like at the pinnacle of this shit, like every dude walking up to me like, dude, you're the fucking man. Like, I wish I was you, like all this shit.
Right.
You can hear all that shit all day long. It doesn't matter. Like what matters is what you think of yourself. And when you're chasing things and you never feel like you have enough, or you don't feel like you've accomplished what you want, you can't really have true self-confidence.
I agree, and I've been there, yeah, and within my own life realities, people think, man, as within the military specifically, but man, like if I just made it to the Delta Force, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
And then, or if you told me like, hey, like one day you're going to be a Green Beret, then one day, like when I first got in the military, then one day you're going to go to the Delta Force, I'd be like, that's crazy. And then the same person could also look at me and be like, and you know what? It won't be enough. I'm like, what? No. If I got the Delta Force, that would be enough for me. But it never is. It really never is to some degree. When you're chasing things, when you're chasing happiness of sorts for the wrong reasons. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of things that it did make me happy with, and I look back and I get to look back at for the rest of my life and be proud of what I did. But even that is having to stop back, take a step back and say, hey, you didn't go as far as you wanted to go, but it was good enough, and you have to accept that's life, and that's good enough, and what's next in life.
Yeah,
that chapter's closed, and there's nothing you can do about it. What's next?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things is, you start focusing on things that make you happy as opposed to pleasure, and you realize that that's the answer.
You said something that really stuck with me, and now I'm probably going to screw it up. I think you'll be able to save me on this. You said pleasure take you on a ride longer than you want to go.
Yeah, this is what
it was in my notes, and
pleasure seeking will take you further than you want to go, cost you more than you're willing to pay, and keep you longer than you're willing to stay.
When you're willing to stay, and
that's not my quote, by the way.
You didn't cite your source, so I gave it to you.
Can't pronounce the guy's name, and it's actually Sin. I swap pleasure seeking for sin.
Okay,
but it's they're interchangeable. To me,
I'll give you credit for it.
Well, if you look at the hedonism pleasure stuff, like that is kind of like the 7 deadly sins. Most of it, what I think the Bible's kind of talking about in a sense of the hedonism, and that's why I kind of reject a lot of the Old Testament, is because it seems like it's a lot of materialism. It seems like it's a lot of that stuff that I realize isn't the answer.
Let's get into that, because that's something you're very vocal about. I'm telling you, I'm really grateful that you took on this interview, but more than that, the research into this interview was very interesting to me, because you get, like everyone else, just as guilty. You have a perception of a guy, you have who you think he is, and this information has been at my fingertips the whole time. For the last year or so, whenever you've decided to say cliche, change your ways, or view things differently. But I guess that doesn't bring up the same amount of headlines as Dan Bilzerian, on a yacht with 14 chicks. Dan Bilzerian going monogamous just doesn't grab the same clicks and views.
Yeah, it's like you save 100 whales and nobody cares, but you kill one.
Right. And then doing research, and I'm hearing what you're talking about, what you're interested in. I'm just being honest with you. It sounds like such a backhanded compliment. You're a lot smarter than I knew you were. You're very articulate. And by watching some of those interviews, if someone wants to lock horns with you, and they can disagree with you all they want, but they'd better do some research if they're going to come talk to you about it.
Look, bring me the facts. I'll change my mind. My conclusions are not based on emotion or hereditary or because I am this, I believe this. Yeah. It's because I've seen this and I've researched it. Like USS Liberty, that's one that hit home. As a Navy vet, Israel fucking blew up one of our ships, and they took our life rafts as fucking trophies. It's like they napalmed the decks, they shot the life rafts. This was, and you being a military guy, you know that you don't just like fucking mistake a ship in the middle of the day. Like, come on, dude, you got multiple fucking planes, you got an attack helicopter, you got you got a submarine, you got all these things. Like, you can see the flags flying. Like, it's, you don't mistake a U.S. warship for being, an Egyptian one, right? So that was clearly, a measured attack, and it was the goal was to sink the ship and blame it on the Muslim Brotherhood and drag us into the war, just much like the Levant affair, where they went and tried to bomb U.S. cinemas and embassies and whatever to, blame that on the Muslim Brotherhood. So they have a history of these false flag attacks. And I'm like,
that's true.
We can't be allies with a nation that's attacking us. Like, that to me alone, those things put us at odds. And that was kind of what got me going down the rabbit hole with the Israel relationship.
I love history. I love history. I love military history. I love U.S. history. And it wasn't until we had two of the survivors of the USS Liberty on my last podcast that I even heard that story.
Yeah. Well, they put a gag order on them.
For years.
Which is crazy.
Which is crazy.
It's fucking crazy, dude. Like, you get attacked and they tell you can't talk about it? Like, what?
That was one of the few episodes, and in a weird way, it was a blessing. It was one of the few episodes I didn't have a chance to prepare for. And so I show up, and I get this story about this naval ship that was attacked, and I was like, okay. And I show up. Their story blew my mind.
Yeah.
Their story, and that I'd never heard about it. Just the extent of it, that Israel absolutely 100% did this. That America was complicit about it. Talking to those guys, I don't review the story just a little bit. For anyone listening, it was a naval intelligence gathering ship. They were told to reposition into the Gulf or the sea right off Israel, or north of Egypt as well in those waters. They asked for a battleship to accompany them because they were going into a perceived war zone. The Navy said, no, we don't like the perception of that, but don't worry, we're going to have a carrier right by you. If something happens to you, call the boys. The airplanes will be off the deck in 5 minutes. They'll be to you in 10. And when that happened, they launched airplanes.
Called them back. Yeah.
Our own country's Navy. And then it got sent all the way up to the president, the White House. And our Navy, our military, our commander-in-chief, I believe it was Lyndon B. Johnson.
Our greatest ally, he says.
Lyndon B. Johnson. Do you remember who the president was? I believe, Lyndon B. Johnson says, no, bring them back. And don't defend our sailors who are getting chewed up.
Yeah, we don't want
by
to embarrass
bombs.
our greatest ally.
It was that one's tough. That was a really, really tough story to hear. I mean, it happened 70 years ago. I mean, I don't. I'm aware. I'm aware of all your stories and instances and things that you prove, or that you use as your reason to be. What I don't want to put a word in your mouth. Anti-Israel, or is that the word?
Oh,
I just want to. Yeah. Okay. I just want to be accurate.
Yeah.
With what I said.
Yep.
And
I didn't start off that way, by the way. I was like, I started off being critical of them.
Sure.
And then I saw the backlash that got, and then I started doing more research, and it was like the reoccurring theme that I got in the research was, my thought was, it can't be this bad. Let me go look into this.
Right.
And I was right every time. It wasn't that bad. It was fucking worse every time. Like, and that was the crazy thing, is like, that was the reoccurring thing, is like, it was worse. It was worse. It was worse. And, and then you just start seeing all this stuff, like,
right.
And it's hard to ignore. And then you look at our politicians, like, all of them on Twitter, just like, Israel's our greatest ally. Netanyahu, this guy's like, he's wanted in the International Criminal Court, and we're like hosting him and we're defending him, and it's just like, I don't know.
Here's, and I would like to talk to you a bit more about it, but it'll take a while. So and we can talk about certain things here, and I'll gladly talk about that because one, in a weird way, especially with heck, you can take the Charlie Kirk assassination, for example. I think we have a really, really bad habit. And I'm just, like I already told you, I'm unapologetically pro-Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I am, and I'll defend that stance. However, I'm not so biased that when you bring me up historical facts, that I just don't be like, well, that can't be true, which is just crazy to do. And I'll go into a little bit of it because I listen to you, but I take Reagan at his word, and I'm a trust but verify guy. Mm-hmm. And I've heard things you said, and I pause the podcast. I'm like, well, let's see what the truth of this is, and I looked it up, and you can't ignore it. You can't ignore some of the things that you say. That isn't me backtracking.
Yep.
That's just some historical things are historical things. One of the reasons, and this is a little bit of an unfair thing that I'm pro-Israel, is because of my Christian beliefs, and we'll just have to disagree on this. But the Old Testament and the New Testament absolutely pair together, and that's a whole other long conversation that I'd love to get into you with. But they absolutely pair together. And when God told Abraham, who after his fight with Jesus became Israel and is you're wrong on this. That is the context of this conversation. When God tells him, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, and from you will become a nation. He makes that promise to Israel to be a nation. He furthers on that promise to his son. That is historically how that's viewed, and even from biblical scholars. But
well, I think he was blessing Abraham, not Israel. But I also think that the Israel of the Bible is different than the Israel today, and I believe that covenant was broken when they killed Christ and didn't accept him once he returned, right, proving that he was what he said he was, right. And so I think that the covenant in the Old Testament and the covenant in the New Testament were different, right? And I think that changed when they killed Christ, and then going forward for people that didn't accept Christ once Christ proved himself.
That's actually the beauty of it. Is, well, one, he didn't change, and to be honest with you, he should have. That covenant that he made with the Jews and would eventually become the nation of Israel, he kept his promise and he kept his covenant. And thank God, because I'm a sinner, and I don't deserve for God to keep his word to me and the things I do, but he does, and he's shown that with how horrible, and I'll say this, with how horrible the Jews have been historically. The Bible even says this. The Bible says you will become a stumbling block to other nations. Well, that's pretty prophetical. I think you'd agree with that prophecy. But he's a consistent God, and even though they don't deserve it, guess what? I don't. As the New Testament did bring in a new covenant, there's nothing that shows. In fact, it only adds on that covenant with the Old Testament was void and null because of that. It actually doubles down on it.
But doesn't Christianity say that you have to accept Jesus in order to get into heaven?
Correct. You absolutely have to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior.
Which they certainly do not, because they say that he's in hell burning and shit. So, that's blasphemy,
And they won't be in heaven over it.
But then think about that. If they are God's chosen people, he's not going to let them into heaven. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't accept that they're God's chosen people. I also think that the Old Testament has been trampled on a bit, and there's a lot of things that aren't that we haven't seen, like the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's God, I can't pronounce the name, but Joe Rogan was talking about this. There's other books that were part of the Old Testament that the Jews have just said, we don't want this in. So, and I look at how they manipulated history with World War II, and what Jews accept today, and also the Israel today is different than the Israel of the Bible. But Look, I can respect the religious beliefs. For me, I almost feel like the Judaism is necessary. I view Judaism and Satanism as very similar, but I think that the world needs positive and negative energy. They need good to have bad. You need bitter to have sweet. Otherwise, if everybody was good, then it wouldn't, like kind of Adam and Eve, right? Like without temptation, your actions aren't really that impressive. And that's one of the reasons why I think the interpretation of Jesus being God takes away from what Jesus did. I think if Jesus is a son of God, which is what I believe, and everybody's got their right to their beliefs, but I think him being the son of God makes what he did far more impressive, because if you're a human and you're walking a perfect path and you're going through pain, I think it's much more admirable and much more impressive than, look, God, it's kind of like you can come down and you're God, everything. It's just easier to do stuff. It's kind of like as a buds instructor, if you were to come in and do one night of Hell Week, that'd be easy because you can walk anytime and you're already,
right. I guess my devil's advocate to that, which is an ironic thing to use in the term to use in this debate, is I disagree. I think it's even harder to be God and then come down, knowing that if you really wanted to, you could change all this right now. Yeah. You didn't have to come down. You're God. If you really wanted to, prove to the Pharisees that who they really are and that you're God, then you could just go levitate anytime you want to levitate. You could turn anything into anything anytime you want. He really used those particular things sparingly. I really could have just every day woke up doing amazing things because he's God, but he didn't. And and restraint is pretty impressive.
I don't know. To me, the Old Testament just doesn't resonate. Like I look at it as, if I've got a fish tank, those are my fish, those are like my kids, whatever. I don't require them to worship me or praise me or whatever. And also, I kind of want what's best for them. And if I want them to do a certain thing, I'm going to tell them what I want. And I think the problem with the idea that if you don't accept Jesus, you're going to hell, then that's a fine premise, but you can't have then people in Africa that have never been exposed to the Bible. Or, why did the people 2,000 years ago have the ability to see Jesus and the miracles and make a decision based on what they've seen and their experience? And now somebody today, after being lied to by the government, after being lied to by the people, it's like, now how do I know that I'm supposed to take this guy's word? The people that are pushing the Quran are really adamant about that. You got all these different religions. It's like, to me, the test is actions. And I think if I was God and I was truly like testing my children and I wanted to see like who is going to pass the test, and who is going to perform well, I would make the rules pretty clear, and I wouldn't have there be a bunch of, I guess, lack of evidence out there, right? Because the people that have read the Quran are sure that that's the right religion. And, the people that read the Bible are sure that that's the, or that are Christian believe that that's the religion. And so Christians are either right or wrong. And if they're right, and if you don't accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, like you're going to hell, that means that 3/4 of the planet are going to hell by default. Right. Yeah. And I don't know, that premise seems odd to me, because if I'm God, also, you're a pretty badass guy, consider,
used to be.
Well, I'm just saying, from a man's point of view, a Tier 1 operator, let's just forget about just military, right? Yeah. In the military sense, a Tier 1 operator is tip of the spear, right? Mm-hmm. So, and what I've found in my life is like people like you, guys like Jake Shields, he's a fucking world champion MMA guy, right? Like, usually brag less. They don't need guys to tell them how badass they are because they know. Who's the guy that fucking beats his chest? The guy that just got his fucking, trident, or you don't even like,
right?
Or the guy that had his first
time and
fight.
time again.
Exactly.
Right.
So all I know is my life experience, and I just feel like if I, was God, I would not require any worship. I would judge people on their actions. If I wanted them to do certain things, I would make it pretty clear and then base them on, and I would give them the opportunity to not, and I would have temptation there, because I think, but I just wouldn't have the ambiguity. If that was my requirement and I was going to like send people to hell if they didn't do that, which is a pretty serious thing, then I would kind of like make the rules clear, and I wouldn't have it like disproportionate, right? Like if a kid's born in Africa, he's obviously at a big disadvantage if he never sees a Bible or never hears the word of God. Or a kid that's born into a Muslim family that his parents tell him, hey, the Quran is the way to go. Like, I'm not going to have that kid burn in hell because he's gotten, false, teachings. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess that's kind of where it doesn't seem to, fully align with me.
I'm a paraphrase this a little bit, not word for word. My brother Drew is 100 times smarter than me when it comes to biblical history, Greek, Hebrew. He's the man to lock horns with. I just get to pick up his breadcrumbs at times. But I'm sure you're aware of the story of Job, right? Mm-hmm. Job had everything, and the devil comes up. He's like, "Hey, well, of course, Job loves you. You've given him everything. Like, it's pretty easy to love you when he's given you everything. Let me start taking some things away from Job." And he does. He takes everything away from Job. And at some point, Job starts questioning God. And this is where the story kind of comes to, and questioning God. And God has as you'd imagine, a pretty good answer to it. And he basically questions Job back. And he goes, you're questioning me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of this earth? Where were you, when I stretched out the stars? Where were you when I placed the sun?
Well, I'm not questioning God. Let that be clear. I definitely believe in God,
right,
for sure.
But you are to a degree, to like, if I was God, like, this isn't how I would do it.
Well,
or
that's more
why
of a
would
theology
you,
thing. That's more of a Christian. I definitely believe in God. This was you would have to be a real jackass to think that everything in this world just happened by coincidence, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's just so fucking absurd.
Right.
So there's clearly a creator. There's clearly a higher power. What I'm saying is, the Old Testament doesn't align with what I have experienced and learned throughout my life as being correct. If God is the person that created all this amazing thing, which I believe he is, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, but the God of the Old Testament is like vindictive. He's talking about gold. He's talking about silver. He wants sacrifice of animals. He's angry at this person. It just doesn't align with my life experience of somebody that has a ton of power, of how they would act,
Right. Well, there is a difference because there was the Old Testament and the New Testament, and everything from the Old Testament points to the New Testament. And, there's a reason we don't still live like that. There's a reason why we still don't give, animal sacrifices. There's a reason why we still don't do a lot of things, because everything was pointed to the new covenant of the coming of Jesus Christ. So you're right, that God and the way he acted, if you want to call it that, not that he's inconsistent, but that, like any phase, that was an appropriate time for then, and this is a new phase, and there being a whole nother phase after this. And I know this, for me, there are some things that I don't understand. I don't pretend to know all the answers, but I also go back to that same answer as well. Who am I to judge God? If the Bible is what is the God that I believe in?
Yeah, definitely not judging. I wouldn't say I'm judging God. I'm just trying to figure out what's true and what's not. Right?
I get that.
And so you've got 2 billion people that are going to tell you the Quran is correct. You've got 2.5 billion people that are going to tell you the Bible is correct.
Yeah.
You've got, however many Hindus that are going to tell you their stuff. So, it's so as a person on earth, I have seen no clear sign. I mean, look, I believe in God, no question about it, but I haven't really received any clear signs that one religion is better than another, or that, I don't know,
Here's I think this is a strong word. It's just the only word I can think with my limited vocabulary. Here's what I wanted to press you with. I don't think I knew I was going to come on here and persuade you in this limited time. Although I really do. I love the debate, and I love talking to people and showing people that, hey, you can disagree with someone and you could still enjoy their company, and you don't have to leave by calling anyone names. Pretty sure this interview will end up being long enough. It's but I know enough about you. Not a big fan of transgenders, are you?
No,
We'll call this a speed round.
Yeah.
Neither am I. Not a big fan of open borders, are you?
No.
Neither am I. You're a pretty big fan of an American first philosophy for this country.
Yes. Of course.
So am I. We can go down this list of everything that we agree on. And what I really can't stand is that this is something, and of everything I've really watched you, this is what we disagree on. And are we gonna part ways over this? Yeah. Am I not gonna allow you to have a platform to at least discuss with me why you feel this way? I think that's insane.
Yeah. No, I think it's important. And honestly, I think that a lot of people will get the most when they hear, two people, debating something and getting both sides. And, as long as somebody provides their, evidence or whatever, and it's not like an emotion-based thing, or it's not like, oh, I hate you if you don't believe this.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, different people have different motivations. They're going to have different outlooks. And I think that's one of the things that's important too, is to kind of like try and understand why somebody, thinks something. Because look, in most wars, both people think they're on the right side of it. It's like,
right. Yeah. I'm certain I've been in 4 or 5 countries where they thought I was the terrorist.
Yeah.
So, but what I wanted to press you on was this, and maybe you just haven't said it, or maybe we can move this ball. Mm-hmm. You're very harsh of Israel.
Yes. And
again, I don't have a problem with people questioning things. Never do. I feel like you give Islam a pass.
Yeah.
I feel like, and if you're going to be that critical of this nation, I think there's a lot of things you could be equally critical to if you were consistent and held that same standard to them. But I don't feel like you do.
I mean, that's fair. I would say that, and I don't know a ton about Islam, but what I've looked into is the similarities between Christianity and Islam. They both think, one thinks that Jesus was a great prophet. The other thinks that Jesus is God. One thinks, the Virgin Mary is the Virgin Mary. The other one thinks, Virgin Mary was the Virgin Mary, right? So I look at these things, and then I look at Judaism, and Judaism thinks that Jesus is in hell burning and shit. The Virgin Mary's a whore. So I'm looking at the similarities between Christianity and Islam, and there's actually a lot. They have Jesus in there. They have similar stories of the Bible. There's some differences for sure, but I think when you're talking about, Jesus being your Lord and Savior and being God, and you have another religion that thinks that he's in hell burning and shit and that he's a scumbag and his mother's a whore, to me, those two religions are at odds before the one that thinks that he's a great prophet and that he's going to come back and save the world, because that's what Islam believes, that Jesus is going to come back and save the world. So I'm looking at these two religions as kind of like brother and sister religions. Granted, they have their differences, no doubt, but the fundamentals seem more aligned. And then I look at Judaism, and it's like, I just don't know how. I mean, it's like if your best friend, right? If somebody's like, hey, your best friend's a piece of shit, fuck that guy, it's kind of hard for the three of you guys to hang out, versus if, one guy's like, hey, I don't think your friend's God, but I think he's a pretty cool cat. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So, and to me, Jesus is such a pillar of Christianity that I think you have to start at how they view your Lord and Savior. And so that's where I have a hard time with this whole Judeo-Christian values, with Judaism and Christianity being hand in hand, and then Jews telling you that Islam is the problem. And, and so that's kind of the angle that I'm coming at it from is the similarities in religious belief, how they, view Jesus, and, and that's the lens that I'm looking through.
I have a huge problem with several things in the Quran that are just drastically different from the Christian religion. When they teach that in the Quran, not just the Hadith, but they are called to subjugate non-believers. They're called to. That's nothing like Christianity. That's absolutely nothing like Christianity.
They say it in Judaism, though, that you should kill all, basically all Gentiles should die.
And there's a reason that that's not my faith.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying. Yeah.
Thankfully, I don't have to defend that.
Yeah.
But that's actually a little bit my point. You're really upset about that with Judaism, and things that I don't know if that particular is in the Talmud, but there's a lot of
kill the best of the Gentiles.
there's a lot of similarities in the Quran, and you're just not as hard on them as you are with Israel.
I think that's a fair thing. I just haven't seen the gnarly stuff in the Quran like I've seen in the Talmud. Like the Quran doesn't say it's okay to lie, cheat, and steal and rape non-Jews. It doesn't say that, that's a pretty big one, right? Like if you can lie, cheat, and steal from people that aren't Jews, and I also see like Jews as being very tribal, and I look at the percentage of problems they're responsible for and the percentage of the population they have, and it's so disproportionate. I also don't really have to deal with Islam. Islam is less than 1% of America. So this, when all these Jews are telling me that like Islam has taken over America, I don't see that as being a real thing. But I do see 36 Jews in Congress and I see 4 Muslims, right? So I look at these disparities and I look at the influence that Israel has on our country and the influence that Islam has, and it's not even comparable. So that's kind of my thing, is it's not as much like theological. And also, Muslims for the most part have been like very gracious with me. They haven't, Jews have fucked me over. They've tried to extort me. They've done all this stuff, but
I agree with that. And I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit, because I don't agree with it.
With what part?
With you being very vocal and what it's cost you. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to save that a little bit towards the end, because what I want to talk about to stay on that topic is you can say that they're pretty peaceful, but you can also and this isn't me saying, no, I'm not defending Jews right now. I'm just making the correlation between the two.
Feel free to
between the two,
because listen.
Yeah,
If you tell me true factual things, I'm open to changing my mind. I just haven't seen any factual evidence to support Judaism or to counter the things that I'm saying. So by all means, if you
not defending Judaism, I'm not. And I already told you in a weird way, it's almost an unfair argument. My I don't even want to say allegiance, but if you want to call the word allegiance to Israel, really has more to do with the interpretation of the Bible and the Old Testament, and for them to say, bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And because the Bible as a whole and Christianity as a whole is true, I don't think it's a coincidence that America has been so blessed. And why are they blessed? Who is Israel's biggest ally? We are.
But have we been blessed though? Because since Israel's
we're the greatest country in the world.
Well, but when we were in the 40s too.
We could be better. We could be better.
But since our support of Israel, we've had this emergence of transgenderism, of homosexuality, the estrogenifying of the American man, the attack on whiteness, the attack on masculinity. We've had this feminism being pushed. Is America better today than it was in the 40s?
That's
morally, morally is it better?
Morally, no.
And we've been blessing Israel since the 40s. So I'm just saying, like,
for sure,
or actually maybe the 5th, I guess 48, whatever. So let's just say 1950. I think since 1950, America's had a moral decline. So have we been blessed since we've been blessing Israel?
Are we the greatest nation in the world?
I mean, in what sense? Morally, no.
You're still living here.
Well, because I like guns. It's not all about morals for me, and I'm also an American, right? I have allegiance. Listen, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I've traveled the world.
Yeah, you have.
I would choose America over anywhere. I'm not like anti-American.
No,
I'm just saying I think our morals, since we've supported Israel in the 50s, have declined. And
Huge slide. Here's where I disagree with you, and for whatever reason, you accredit that moral slide to Jews.
Well, you can't attribute it to Islam. They're not running our country. They're not running the media. They're not running Hollywood. They're not pushing this stuff.
Correct, but it's pretty clear to me that it's liberals. That is a liberal agenda.
Who gives the liberals their talking points? This is the big piece, right? It's we can agree on liberals being,
and I know
just total nonsense, but who tells them what to say, right? Because to me, it's like there's a bunch of snakes in my house, and it's like, yeah, you know, I got to hit the snakes, but like, who's bringing the snakes in? If you got a Jew upstairs putting snakes in the house, like, to me, the Jewish media is giving the liberals their talking points. They're telling them that like transgenderism, all this stuff is, you know, like men should be in women's sports, like white men are the problem. They're telling them all this stuff, right? And by the way, it's very coincidentally exactly what was going on in Weimar Germany prior to, you know, the Nazis taking over. And what did the Nazis do? They shut down the child brothels. They shut down the transgender clinics. You know, they shut down a lot of this filth. Like, I mean, if you look at Weimar Germany, it was like a cesspool. You know, mothers and daughters prostituting themselves, child brothels, transgenderism, promotion of homosexuality, like all that moral decay. And today it's like packaged as being progressive, but it's not really progressive. It's a regurgitation of what was happening 100 years ago.
If that were true, I believe you'd have to say this. That's your theory. You'd have to prove it.
Well, theory in what sense? I mean, I don't think anybody would argue that Weimar Germany was total cesspool.
Not that. That Jews dictate and give the liberals their talking points.
Well, I mean, we can agree that because almost all the liberals agree on all their talking points, and most of these are pushed by the media.
The liberals are there's few things I give them credit for, and they are lockstep in their talking points, much better than the right is. Mm-hmm. But they're also very generally, especially if we're talking about true liberalism, and at their core, really anti-God and anti-Christianity, and anti-religion.
Yeah, I mean, that's communist too, you know.
That's right. Which would be an odd ally for someone to give them orders and talking points that is completely religious and completely God focused.
Well, that's what the Jews did when they took over Russia, right? The Bolsheviks, they made it illegal to be Christian. They burned down 40,000 Christian churches. They killed tens of millions of Christians. They made it illegal to criticize Jews. Right. So, you know, and they made religion illegal. So that's exactly what the communists did, and that was from Karl Marx. That was from a Jew. Communism, Marxism, that's all Jewish, you know, creation. So almost all the isms, transgenderism, like they were all created by Jews.
You know where else it's illegal to have a church? Under Sharia law. Sharia law.
They've got Christian churures in
Sharia law does not
Palestine.
True Sharia law does not.
I mean, I guess they did before Israel bombed them all.
does not allow for other religions.
They say there's three religions of the book according to Islam, and Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Those are like the three religions of the book.
Let's go back to we got off point just a little bit. I just want to make sure that I got to talk about this, which is just the comparison to which you would say in anywhere Jews have been has not been beneficial. As just a general statement,
morally definitely not.
Okay. You'd also have to prove me, because really one of my points was that and it's not like you give me a lot of pushback. You just keep saying like or say like I haven't really looked into it the way I've looked into that, but the coincidences and the parallels are there. Show me another place where Muslims continue to go into that get better. Because what's happening right now in France isn't better. What's happening in Germany isn't better. What's happening in the UK is really bad.
When you take military-aged men from war-torn countries and you bring them into a country they have no allegiance to, you're going to have problems, right? Like, and I don't think that it matters if they're Muslim or Christian. I mean, look, they've got, Ethiopians and Somalias, whatever, and they're going to Minnesota and causing tons of fucking problems. And Ethiopia is like mostly, in fact, Africa is mostly Christian, right? So I think when you take people from war-torn countries in extreme poverty and you inject them into countries that they have no allegiance to and no cultural similarities, you're going to have big problems. And also when you allow them to operate with impunity, which is what they're doing in the UK, they're not even fucking punishing them for raping girls. It's like, what do you think's going to happen? So I don't think that's a Muslim problem. I think that's a border problem. And you look at who's funding the NGOs and who's pushing these open border policies and this melting pot idea, and it's all Jews. And even Charlie Kirk said that.
I hate the melting pot.
It's Jewish idea. Theology, like that's coming from them. Like that's their, that's their thing. Because what they want is they don't want nationalism because they stand out in nationalist places. That's why they hated Germany so much, is because they stood out. And when it's just a big melting pot, it's also easier to control, by the way. If you're a small
I
minority.
see you're going with that.
Yeah, small minority can control a large majority as long as the majority is not working together. So what do? They attack the biggest majorities that would be a threat to them, which is white Christian males.
I also think you're, to some degree, and I'll give credit where credit's due here in a second, but to some degree, the Jewish population, I believe, is 2%. 2% of this
US,
country.
0.2% of the world, yeah.
2%. I think you're giving 2% of the people a lot of credit.
Well, they're 50% of the billionaires. They're 75% of the Ivy League admissions boards. They're they're like 100% of the BlackRock execs. Head of Disney, head of Paramount, head of all the studios. So I mean, like, they're so massively disproportionately represented in these positions of power that I think it's crazy. I mean, here's the thing. It's so disproportionate that it can't be argued that it's any kind of like standard distribution anomaly, right? Because like it's in banking, it's in like pretty much every single position of power.
Please join our Patreon for exclusive and behind the scenes content. The link is in the description.
I looked that up because that was some of the things you talked about. I knew that would be your rebuttal. Although, give you a hard time. I don't think you're really consistent about Israel and Islam.
Give me all the pushback you want, please. No, I'm welcome.
You're consistent in this, and so I looked up some of the media stuff. Rupert, everyone knows the Murdoch family. Rupert Murdoch owns Fox News.
That's the only one. Yeah.
Well, ironically enough, not a Jew. So this is where I come. And I'm like, okay,
but Zionist.
I go, okay. Hold on.
The thing, it's not all Jew. It's not always a Jew, but it's usually a Jew or a Zionist. And it's like, and also they don't have to have every person be Jewish, right? As long as they're beholden to Jewish interests or they're aligned with Jewish interests, they're aligned with Zionism. Like those, like for instance, like Biden, he obviously wasn't Jewish, but he was. But he was helping Israel. You know what I mean? Like so
I continued down that road because you made a comment that the Jews own the media. So that was the first thing I looked up was Fox News, and I continued. CNN is CEO is Mark Thompson, not a Jew, but I zoomed out.
Yeah.
Do you know who owns CNN?
Company.
Warner Brothers. Yeah. Warner Brothers CEO David Vaslov, who is a Jew. Yeah. So in a weird way, they do the parent company just trying to be unbiased about it and look more in this. MSNBC president is Rebecca Cutler, not a Jew. If you zoom out, they're owned by Comcast. Comcast CEO is Brian Roberts, who I thought was a very white name. Yeah. Looked into it. He is a Jew.
So they're going to put in people. Here's the thing: like a CEO of a company that's owned by a parent company really isn't kind of calling the shots, right? And then and then you have to look at the board. You have to look at the ownership. And the CEO is going to do what the owners and the board tell him, right? So if the owners and the board say, "Hey, we need more liberal stuff,"
it's why
he's going to do that. If he gets his hand slapped every time he's anti-Israel, he's going to be anti-Israel. So like when you look at the decision makers and the people that are like really calling the shots, like BlackRock, those are the people that are pushing DEI. DEI is a big initiative that has really crippled America, and that is coming from the Jewish community. BlackRock's execs are all Jewish, and BlackRock owns a lot of these other companies. So when you have a hedge fund that owns 37% of another company, they're going to tell that company what, what I'm saying?
Now they're beholden to them. Just
exactly.
Same thing.
They have so much power. They have, whatever. They have more than a third of the board members on that company. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Like, here's my question to you. Which is, if we go back to what you said, it's they're 2% of the population, but then you just said, well, they're 2%, and I said I think you're giving them too much credit for such a small percentage. But then you go into the counter argument of how can 2% be such an overwhelming majority of prominent roles and millionaires and billionaires in this country, which is a valid question. My question back to that is this. Those are all, or perceivably all, merit-based positions of sorts. You know what I mean?
Like all the BlackRock execs happen to be Jewish because Jews are so smart. Like there's a lot of super smart Asians. Look at how many Harvard and Stanford,
Right.
Asians, they have, in fact, as an Asian to even get into those colleges, you have to have like a 1600 and a 4.0 and be all this other stuff,
hate it.
right?
I hate
So there's
it.
tons of
Right.
super smart Asians.
Right.
So it's not like Jews are the only smart people in America. So to
Right.
like suggest that they're there because they're so smart, like I'm not saying that they're not intelligent, but like they're
Right.
not so disproportionately intelligent. And by the way, they just get like lumped in with whites. They're like 25% of the Ivy League. They're so overrepresented that if you sucked Jews out of the Ivy League, whites would actually be underrepresented. So this whole idea that they tell you of like, oh, there's too many whites here, so we have to increase the minority. It's just bullshit. Like take Jews out. Jews are white when it's convenient for them, and then they're Jewish when it's like a time to attack the whites.
So if they have let me present this to you. If they have a culture of business and a culture of, hey, you are going to get these pedigrees, you're going to do well in school, you're going to get these business degrees. What's different than, let's say, the black community who is 13% of this population, but in the NBA, what are they? Which I'll make this up. I don't think you're going to argue with me a whole lot. 90% of the NBA.
They're athletically gifted, no two ways about that.
So now,
like disproportionately athletically gifted.
Is that a conspiracy theory that black people are helping other black people get into the NBA the same way that
they're genetically gifted? Like they have naturally higher testosterone levels. Like that stuff can't be disputed. Like they're absolutely unequivocally better athletes. And part of the argument is that it was because they bred the strongest and the strongest survived and whatever. But like that's not. I mean, listen, you're not going to get an argument from me that different races have different attributes, but you're not going to convince me that Jews are smarter than Asians, and we have more Asians in our country than we do Jews, and we don't have Asians massively disproportionately represented in all these positions. So all things being equal, apples to apples, that can't be the reason because of Asians.
It's almost an unfair question, but you don't seem to shy away from any question.
Yes, tougher the better.
And I don't shy away from asking hard questions. Questions can't be racist. Again, you're very critical of the Jews, and so my honest question would be this. And this is the way I think, sometimes just critically, if you removed every Jewish person from this country, would America be better or worse because of it?
I think it would. I mean, so are we redistributing their wealth, or are they taking their wealth out of America? Is it all that money that's been sucked out of the economy because of the Fed and because of private banking and all this stuff, like BlackRock, all the money they sucked out of the economy?
Money stays, next man up concept.
Oh, way better off, because this is a small tribe that's working coordinatedly against white Christians. This is a tribe that has tribal affinity. They are they're very ethnocentric. They're giving each other legs up. It's them. I mean, look at the Talmud. It's like it's Jew versus Gentile. I mean, and you can't blame them. Like you want to say they've been persecuted, or like they've been they've gotten the repercussions of Jewish actions, however you want to phrase it. But like throughout the last couple thousand years, like it's been them against society. Like they're constantly thrown out of countries. They're doing fucked up shit. They're poisoning wells. They're clipping coins. They're doing all these things. And then they get expelled, and then they get let back in, and it's this constant thing. So you can't be mad at them for having tribal affinity, or for having like a heightened survival instinct, whatever you want to call it.
I do believe they do have a heightened survival instinct.
The problem is when you have a group of people that are tribal and have a heightened survival instinct, and are worried about things happening to them and this, that, and the other, and are giving each other a break to the detriment of other people, and then they're pushing out stuff that's causing a moral decay. Like at some point we have to say, like, hey, it's not, you can't be us against them and they being our government. Like our government has to be America first. It can't be Jew first and Israel second and America third or whatever.
Right.
Like it has to be America first. That's it. Like that's
agree.
a non-negotiable.
Right.
Anything else is treason. So there's a lot of Jewish congressmen that have more allegiance to Israel than America, and they have dual citizenship with a foreign country. That is literal treason.
Right.
So that's where I kind of like really started to have a big issue was like, you need to represent America. You are elected to be an American representative, not a Jewish representative, not an Israeli representative, America.
You could argue that Black Americans do the same thing. What would happen in this country if every Black person left overnight?
There'd be less crime. No two ways about that. You know, sports would be a lot less entertaining. You know, I mean, look, you know,
and Black people do the same thing as far as really pushing. Hey, only go to Black-owned businesses. Only support your Black politicians.
But who told them to do that? Because like this country is way more racist now than it was 6 years ago. Like 6 years ago, I didn't even think about race, but the media makes every fucking thing about race.
I do believe
and then
that.
They tell these blacks like, "Hey, whites are responsible for this because they put you into slavery." When the funny thing is, Jews were massively disproportionately in charge of the transatlantic slave trade, and that's like fully documented.
Right.
So, like, you know, you want to talk about reparations, it should come from the Jewish community because they're the ones that brought them here, you know? And so it's like, but you have Jews telling blacks, hey, you know, whites are why you are not succeeding. You know, whites are the reason why there's systemic racism instead of taking any responsibility whatsoever as a Jew. I mean, Malcolm X talked about this.
But Malcolm X, he also talked about, Democrats, which I would call liberals and Republicans. We see things very similar, but when I say liberal, you could make the same statement and agree on it, but you would say Jew.
Because that's who's telling them what to do. You know,
Right. I'm listening to your argument. Right.
Yeah, it's coming from CNN. See, you know, it's the media is reinforcing this. The media is reinforcing this crazy bullshit. Like fucking drag queens reading to 9-year-olds, 9-year-olds reading about homosexual acts in school. Like, this is fucking craziness. Men with their dicks out around little girls in locker rooms. Like, that's crazy shit. But like 10 years ago, we all agreed on that. That was like not like crazy. Now they try to make you crazy for saying that. And who did that? The media pushed that shit. And who's running the media? So all I'm saying is like responsibility has to come with these positions of power. Like, it just has to, you know, like if it was Muslims doing this, if it was Chinese doing this, like everybody would be going fucking crazy about it.
If that is what's going on, how do we fix it?
Well,
I agree with you. To some degree.
Yeah, first thing is everybody has to realize what's going on. It needs to be called out. It needs to be one of these things where like the shift is to America first. You have to recognize, like, you know, preferential treatment to Jews or Israel or Qatar or China or whatever the fuck ever that's not America needs to stop.
We agree.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, like this whole America first thing, that sounded great. You know, but like that's not what we got. We got Israel first and America second, and you know, like people in Israel have health care and Americans don't. We have homeless people. Like, why the fuck are we sending hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine? We have homeless people on the streets. We have veterans that are fucking killing themselves. We have veterans that can't, you know, they don't have basic needs met. Yeah. Like, they've served our country. Like, they've defended people. You know, like, you cannot be giving out all this money for foreign fucking wars. It's got nothing to do with us when we have America struggling. And America is struggling right now. Like, and we should not be. Because we have more technological innovation now than we ever have in the history of mankind. It's not even fucking close. Yeah. And yet the average American is doing worse. They're more in debt. You know, it's like, so I'm like, why are we not focusing inside? Like, why are we, you know, like constantly, why are fucking senators even talking about going to Israel? Why is I think that's one of the reasons Mandani got elected, by the way. You probably saw that video where it was like, oh, where are you, you know, what are you going to do is when you get elected? Well, I'm going to take my 5th trip to Israel. And then the next guy's like, well, I'm going to take my 4th trip back to Israel. It's like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, he was the only guy that was like, I'm going to go to the 5 boroughs. And everybody's like, did you hear that? he's not going to Israel, you know, like, and these fucking retards had been in this, like, you know, this echo chamber for so long that they thought that was like a bad thing. And I truly believe that's why he got elected. I mean, this guy's a fucking communist. He's crazy. It's like all these shit things. But I think like everybody was so tired of this like Israel thing that I really believe that that's how he got elected in a 20% Jewish, you know, city, state, whatever, like crazy. But you know, people are just tired of it. And I think, you know, it's time for it to be America first. And that's, That was honestly like what kind of like set me off on this.
Yeah.
Is I'm just like, we have to put our country, before other foreign nations.
And what's crazy is I'm sure people are going to listen to this, and hey, anyone who comes on my show, Nancy Pelosi, I've said this before, Nancy Pelosi could sit across from me, and I will be respectful to Nancy Pelosi. I will push back on things I don't agree with, but the whole reason to have a guest on is I don't invite people on here so I can argue with them. Yeah. I invite people on here so I can hear them. Sometimes it challenges me. Hey, if and this is just the way I think. If I should have been able to, if my view is absolutely right, and I can't sit here and shut you down with a lot of facts, you know what the problem was? I didn't know enough about my own beliefs. And part of this will challenge me to go back and hear some of the things you say, look into those, look into the counter arguments, step back as unbiasedly as you can, and do better. What I really want to challenge people listening to this is some people may hear some of the things you said and just immediately shut down and say, this is bullcrap, or how could Brent, who's a Christian, says he's pro-Israel, sit down here and have a conversation with this guy? Because I hope they waited till to this part of the podcast, because everything you just said is exactly what me and most of my viewers believe in. And like I said before, we just can't have this thing where if we don't agree on this one crazy thing, that we have to walk away from each other. And I do want to say this, and I know it's a little bit unfair. My support from Israel is Christian based. As a pure American, and there is separation of church and state, I actually believe what you believe, and that is, why are we supporting these other countries financially? I think this country should be run more like a business. And if we don't have a return on that investment, and if every single deal going out in agreement should be why should we do this? What's in our best interest to do this?
Yep.
And this goes a little bit to the warrior mentality in me. And there's a reason that I shouldn't be king of America, but hey, if you can't defend your country, then you don't deserve to be a country. And that's just how the world has worked since the inception of countries in the world.
I mean, you got to take care of your people before others, right? Like, I mean, it's okay, it's cool to be giving, it's great, but like, you can't have your countrymen and your brothers suffering and struggling and starving, and you're just sending out hundreds of billions of dollars because it's going to kick back to you someday. I'm
not a big fan of Chicago, but let me tell you, if there is one shoeless kid in Chicago that goes hungry, I don't want another dollar leaving this country. Yeah. And that's how I feel as American.
We could start with the veterans, right? Like, as long as there's a veteran fucking hungry in this country, like,
heck
it's
yeah.
absurd,
Let's start with the veterans.
You can't take care of those guys. Like, what the fuck are you sending money somewhere else? Like, and it's we're like $37 trillion in debt, and it's like gotten to be such like a comical number. People don't realize, like, had it not been for our support of Israel, we'd have like another $20 trillion. And like what that equates to is like a Lamborghini in the garage of every single American household, like paid off. I just like, people just don't understand like how much the war on terror cost, and we fought these wars, Benjamin Netanyahu came and testified in front of Congress that they had weapons of mass destruction. They did not. He even lined it out, the countries that he wanted us to attack and he wanted toppled. And we've gone like throughout that list. You look at these countries now and it's like, is Libya better without Gaddafi? Absolutely not. You can buy a slave there today. Is Iraq and Kuwait better? I mean, without Saddam, I don't know. I mean, that place is a disaster right now.
Took a bit. Iraq's better.
I mean, he said that was going to have positive reverberations throughout the region, and Trump, went the other day and just said it was a total disaster, and they're way worse off for us having toppled the regime. So, I mean,
well, the biggest thing you just said it. I've had the biggest problem since this interview is you said you could put a Lamborghini in every garage. Why not a Corvette? We were just talking about America First, and you want to start throwing overpriced Italian supercars
Well, they could have
not supporting.
I guess 2 or 3 Corvettes. I'm just saying like dollar amount. Like it was $200,000.
Okay. All right.
I couldn't think of an American car that cost $200,000. You know? I guess too. You know, but I just know like in the age of social media, like when people hear that, they think like, hey, I could have a Lamborghini in my garage. As a kid growing up, for me it was a Ferrari, but like I get it. You know, and I don't think that it kind of like has any context until people hear stuff like that, because like, what is $37 trillion? I don't think people even like realize how ridiculous that number is. And like at some point, like I guess we got to pay that back. Like, I mean,
I know that's so crazy to me.
And like, and where did that come from? That came from a Jewish private bank that they called the Federal Reserve. And they get to print our dollars and just decide what interest rate that we pay them. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, it used to be U.S. note. And then I think in like the 70s or whatever, it said Federal Reserve note. Like, we don't even own our own money. Like, it's a private bank. How's just like some random private citizen able to print U.S. dollars? Like, how is that not an actual federal institution? And so I just look at these things and I'm just like, what, what is going on? Like, how did that happen? And then you start looking at the Constitution and like, income tax is unconstitutional, and you start looking at like,
don't get started on taxes.
Yeah. I mean, but look, what did our country get founded on? We didn't want to pay 1% tax on tea. That's literally why we're fucking here. Yeah. 1% tax on tea. Now we're paying 50 fucking something percent. Our dollars are getting inflated at like 10% a year. I mean, a fucking cheeseburger, the cost of a cheeseburger is more than doubled. It's tripled. I think it's almost like tripled in the last like, however many years, like 5 years. It's like, it's crazy. So
couldn't agree more.
Yeah. It's like, so the average American's like, we're paying for it, whether we like it or not.
And then to really piss you off, because it ties into our conversation earlier, is you get absolutely overtaxed everywhere you turn. And then they take that tax money and they send it overseas without asking you, as if it's not your money. You get no say in all the different places and even countries that hate this country. And they just send it off and don't ask you about it. It's your tax money. It's your country.
Like, why are you so mad about Palestine? I'm like, because I'm paying for that shit. Like,
It's a valid concern.
I don't care any more about a Palestinian as I do somebody that I don't know in Africa, as somebody that I don't know in Russia. Like, I don't want anybody to die that I don't know, but I certainly don't want to be fucking paying for it.
Right. With no representation, which goes back to taxation without representation.
Yes, which is fucking the whole reason why this country is here. Someone's like, are we going backwards or like...
And the whole reason I think nothing will happen is because we're comfortable. I believe if our founding fathers woke up today, there'd be two things.
Roll over in their graves.
They'd be in awe. They'd be in awe of the good things and how big and how powerful this country's become. I don't think they could have ever fathomed what this country's become. And if you want to talk about the positive parts to it.
Yeah, I just don't want it to be smoky mirrors, right? Like, I don't want it to be like a big shiny facade, like the guy flexing on Instagram that's got, $500,000 in debt, but he's got a nice car in the front of the garage, right? Like, it looks good, but like, the rooster's going to come home to roost eventually.
And I say that first because, and that's what they should be shown. They should be shown, hey, like your hard work and you putting your life on the line against a world superpower at the time wasn't all for nothing. But if you see everything that this country is capable of, what it has, how rich it is, to now see the other side of that and see where we're going with it, it's an even bigger reason to protect it. It's an even bigger reason to fight for it.
It's a country worth fighting for. It'd be a lot easier to just fucking leave. It'd be a lot easier to just get the fuck out of here than try and fix it from within.
And I think they'd look at the men of this country and in disgust and be like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? We went to war and we had a lot less to lose over a lot less, transgressed against us. And you guys are just sitting there. Yeah. Are there no men left in this country? I do.
And then I start looking at why.
I say that, and I'm not going to do anything either.
Yeah. I'm with you. And I look at the why. It's like, why is our food so bad? Like, why? Why does the health table tell you that you should have 11 servings of bread every day? Like, why are they telling you not to eat meat? Like. I think we have a lot of bad information. To me, it feels like And I think this became very clear after COVID for a lot of people that the government just doesn't give a shit about us. And we've set up a system where they are more interested in what's best for them and what's best for their donors than what's best for America. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like I need to run for office, because we need people in there that don't give a shit about getting more famous or getting more money or getting more power, that just literally want to do what's best for America. That's what we need. We need politicians in there that are going to do what Trump said that he was going to do, which is, not be able to be bought, do what is in the best interest of the country. And the problem is we just don't have that. And that's why I told Jake he should run. That's why I was talking to Gordon Ryan. He was talking about possibly running. We need real Americans that care about America, that are going to do things in the best interest of the country and not in the best interest of themselves.
Right. Who can't be bought.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you believe Trump can be bought then?
100%. I think he was in debt when he went in. He had 36. He had 36 convictions. I think they had him by the balls, which is why I think they allowed him to be president. Because I also believe that they thought that people would follow him a lot further than they would follow Kamala Harris. And it's like, if you're putting in a puppet, you're putting in somebody that's beholden to you, somebody that's going to do what you say do. You want somebody that people are going to follow.
Well, now, didn't intend to. Now I got to give pushback about this. Okay. If that's true, you've already said that Jews are for open borders. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if he can be bought, President Trump has been the absolute biggest advocate of secure borders and securing 100%. Them and removing people, so he can't be both people.
Well, I think it's two heads of the same snake. He's not Trump is doing, I'm not saying everything he's doing is bad. I think he's doing some good things. I don't think he's 100% controlled. He also ran under that premise too. And people were really fucking sick and tired of this open border shit, right? That's not something that anybody other than some fucking blue-haired, brainwashed liberal would want, because what you're doing, and I've talked about this numerous times, you're solving for the worst possible candidate to come here, right? Because somebody that's going to come here with a business, somebody's going to come here with $1 million in the bank and invest in this country and hire people and bring value, he's not coming across the border.
Right.
Fucking swimming with a pocket full of fentanyl and a fucking revolver. You know what I mean? That's the guy that's a fucking ex-con that's got nothing to lose, that doesn't give a fuck, that's coming here to try and exploit this country. And that's what you're getting. So you're solving for the worst possible problem. It's not a Muslim problem. Guys coming over the border with fentanyl coming from Mexico, they're not fucking Muslim, right? I'm sure there's bad Muslims, you know what I mean? But it's, there's people coming into all these foreign countries. It's not just Europe. Australia's got this problem. They got Indians, we've got, people coming from South America. Everybody's being, infested with basically just super poor people that have no sense of nationalism for the country. And it's proving to be a problem. It shouldn't shock anybody.
Right, of course it's going to be a problem.
We all could have predicted this.
Right.
So why the fuck are they doing it is the better question. It's who the fuck would, and that's what I said to Trump 3 years ago when I was sitting down with him. I said, what is going on with our country? We've never been more divided. We've never been more racist. I feel like we're being destroyed from within.
Yeah.
And now I know it's because of this Jewish supremacy problem that we have. But at the time, I had no fucking idea. And I said, is it Chinese, the Russians? I feel like our country's being destroyed from within. What is going on? And he just had deer in the headlights. No, he knew, but he couldn't say it, right? But if you look at who's behind these problems, our country is being destroyed from within. And it doesn't make sense until you figure out the people that are doing it don't give a fuck about people that aren't a part of their tribe. And so then it does make sense. And it does make sense that they would want America to divide it, because if you're a small minority and you're controlling a large group of people, what do you want? Divide and conquer, classic, thing.
Right.
The more Americans are divided, the more the whites are like, oh, we got a fucking black problem, and the Christians are like, we got a fucking Muslim problem, and the conservatives are like, oh, it's these fucking liberals, and the liberals are like, oh, it's the fucking neo-Nazi conservatives, and everybody's pointing their fucking finger, and nobody's realizing who's actually causing these problems.
I do believe that the United States, there is no country or thing in this world that could bring down a united United States. It's the only way,
exactly,
the absolute only way to bring down the superpower, and whoever it is doing a good job on that.
You can't tell me USA Today doesn't feel very different than it did 7 years ago.
Of course it does.
Radically. You can feel it. There's just, an energy. And it's the media, dude, 7 years ago, it wasn't black this, white this, black this, white this. It's just fucking all they say. And what does that do? It causes division,
To some degree, though, I also feel like the pendulum is swinging
It is.
as well. There's light. I don't know if we got enough runway to do it, and it really depends. I think the presidential. I feel like we're saying this every 4 years, but it's been true every 4 years. So the next presidential race will be the most important presidential race of our lifetime, because we need more runway, because people are sick and tired of transgenders, boys playing in women's sports and taking state titles away from them, and taking college scholarships away
it's just
from them.
Nonsense. Like, it's an attack on women. Like,
right.
And it's disguised, and they put lipstick on it and pretend like it's like a human rights thing, and it's just bullshit.
Right. Exactly.
Attack on women.
It's a mental illness, and I don't believe they should be beat up in the street over it.
Do
Guess
whatever
what?
you want.
You
You
live in
wear
America.
A dress, fucking wear a dress.
That's
but
right.
You're not in the locker room with my daughter, motherfucker.
Right.
And you're not going to pull
Right.
your dick out and piss next to her. Like,
Right.
this is not
Exactly.
That's not going to
Like,
happen. Like,
you don't-
wear your dress, do what the fuck you want, be perverted. I don't care. Have gangbangs with dudes, whatever you want. I don't give a shit behind closed doors. I don't care.
Right.
But not in front of my daughter.
But you
You're not
don't
going
get
to
the
read to her in school.
That's
You're
right.
not going to tell her about it. You're not going to make her read a book about two, gays having sex at 9 years old. Like, like, there's limitations. Like, I'm not like, hey, let's go string up the fucking gays. I'm not like, kick them out of the country.
Right.
Go be gay. I don't give a shit. Just not around the kids. Like, it's just like
Again.
common sense shit.
So the your opinions, and I would say your viewpoints. Your viewpoints, they've come at a cost to you personally or and professionally, and specifically professionally. And if what I read is true, I mean it costs you your position at the company you founded, Ignite.
Yeah, they kicked me off the board. They kicked me out as a CEO.
They do a no confidence vote on you. Is that what they did, or
they
just
illegally kicked me off, and they the banker stopped a sale. We were supposed to sell it for $750 million. So it's cost me a lot of money. I mean, I own half the company still, but
right? What was their? I think it's safe to say, but specifically, what was their reason for kicking you off the board or from firing you from the
criticism of
CEO?
Israel, literally.
Just that,
Yeah.
And you're like, they didn't come.
That's
to,
why the bankers pulled out, and then that's why they kicked me off the board.
They didn't come to debate you about it.
No.
They didn't come to talk to you about it. They
It's an
didn't.
indefensible position. I mean, like I've tried the debate. Patrick Bet-David. I mean, this guy is like, he's in geopolitics. Like,
I watched that interview.
He does. I smoked him,
it
and
was-
I smoked him with less information because I just spoke from the heart. I just said what I thought was true.
Yeah.
Like, he had way more information. He's done this way more than I have. He's a podcaster. I don't even barely do fucking podcasts.
Yeah.
And I smoked him, but I smoked him because what I'm saying is true, and I'm saying things that people are scared to say, and that's another reason why I smoked Pierce too, is because like he didn't expect me to double down, and just he expected me to like do what everybody else has done and tail between the legs, and I'm just not. I just don't give a fuck. Like, I've done all this shit. I don't care about the materialistic shit anymore. So when you stop caring about materialistic stuff and you've got some money, they cannot fucking stop anything that you do. Like, I'm uncancelable. I'm big enough where like I'm famous enough, and if you don't care about money, they cannot control you. You care about money, I don't care how much money you have, they can control you.
Do you ever concern yourself at all of if 2% of the population is as powerful as you say they are, how bad it can get, and what
I thought they were gonna kill me.
What they can really do to you?
I thought they were going to kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I really thought. So
How about this as a hypothetical question? If since they're so powerful, if they don't take all your money and they don't kill you, does that mean to some degree they're not as powerful as you thought they were?
no, because I think there's a level of safety when you scream it from the rooftops. Because I think the reason that they were able to kill Charlie Kirk is because he was about to turn, but he hadn't turned. That's the perfect time to kill somebody. It's like if somebody's screaming, like, it's there's this game. I know it sounds fucking gay to say, but it's called Werewolves. And me and a lot of my poker player buddies used to play this because it's basically basically a bluffing game. You are lying, and the other person is trying to figure out if you're lying or not. That's the premise of the game. And it's like there's 3 werewolves and there's 15 villagers or whatever. And what you find is that the 3 werewolves usually win the game because you don't know who they are, but they're working together.
Right.
And what it tells you is like the small minority can beat the large majority if working coordinated.
together.
And another thing that you see in the game too is like, if I say this motherfucker's a werewolf, they're actually less likely to kill me. Because if they do, then the last motherfucker that I pointed to is the most likely to be guilty, right? So if I'm screaming about the Jews and then I get killed mysteriously, it kind of like gives more credence to what I'm saying. So I do think there's like a level of protection when you go as far as I've gone, which is like screaming it from the rooftops.
I agree with that. And in fact, I didn't intend for it to go as long as it's gone, but there's one.
Yeah, I got to take a piss.
I do too, actually. But one last important question, and that's you back to your success and back to your pleasure seeking and everything that you've kind of matured at. Looked in the mirror and said, "I'm not happy." So what?
I just realized it wasn't the answer. You know,
yeah.
I mean, it was fun. Don't get me wrong. Like, but I did it just probably longer than I should have.
The Bible doesn't say that sin is fun for a season for no reason.
Exactly.
It's that part's never been debated from any side that it's not fun. So it's one thing to say, hey, like this isn't for me. Have you found out what is for you, and what is your life goals? Like where do you go from here when that's your past?
I'm trying to have a positive impact. Like I'm trying to like do the right thing. I'm hanging out with my buddies more. I'm trying to do things that I enjoy doing. I think one of the things when I started speaking out about this and I thought that they were going to fucking kill me was like I spend my time a little differently. You know, if you think you only got like, you know, a couple months to live or whatever, like you stop doing shit you don't want to do. I can tell you that, you know.
Yeah.
And the day's a little sweeter. Like it's just a different outlook. And, you know, look, fucking a hot girl is great. You know, fucking a hot girl 4 times a day is great. You know, fucking 4 different hot girls, whatever. But it's fun for like 15, 20 minutes. Then you got to hang out with them. Now you got to hang out with 10 chicks that you don't want to talk to because they're fucking 20 years old.
Right.
And they've been locked up in the house for fucking COVID for fucking 2 years. They got nothing to fucking add to the conversation.
That's right.
And you've traveled the whole world. Let me tell you something. I'd much rather be with my buddies surfing in fucking, you know, Kauai or free diving in Thailand or whatever with my homies. And then, you know, playing cards at night. And then I get to have sex with my girlfriend and I don't have any fucking headaches and I don't have to listen to any bullshit.
Right.
That I found was much, much better. I don't care how hot the girls are, whatever. Like hanging out with one chick. That's why I'm like a proponent of monogamy now. Everybody thinks that's fucking so crazy. Yeah. But, you know, any girl that's actually with you for the right reasons, if she's not going to be okay with you fucking a bunch of other girls, they will allow it. I've had girls allow it. I've had 5 girlfriends, whatever, you know, any given time, you know, 50 sometimes, but they'll allow it. But like the right girl's not going to stick around.
Yeah.
And she's not gonna, well, she maybe for a little bit, but not like indefinitely.
Right.
So you're never going to have like that real connection, number one. And number two, like, dude, there's a lot of headache that comes with that shit.
I can only imagine.
It's a lot. And the funny thing is there's actually more headache with 5 than there's with 50. Because the 50 is just like whatever, you know, like come and go and, you know, they're just happy for the time. With 5, now it's more competitive. It's this and that. So there's like no real happy medium. You're either like juggling 50 or 100 girls that you're dating or, you know, you try and like, you know, narrow the herd thinking that it's going to make it easier and actually makes it harder.
Yeah.
And then you go to 1 and you're like, oh, thank God. You know, like I don't have to deal with any shit, you know, and that's where I'm at, man. It's like just hang with my buddies, one girl, and then just, you know, trying to like, you know, do what I think is right and just like fuck it, whatever the cost, I don't care, you know, and saying what I think needs to be said right now. That's another thing is like I feel like I'm in a unique position because I don't care about all these things that a lot of people are corrupted with.
Yeah,
and I've also been blessed beyond measure. Like I've been able to do way more than any man should ever be able to do in 10 lifetimes. And so I've been blessed. And so I feel like with that, like, you know, I should give a little back, do something positive and not let my, you know, like net effect on the world be like a promotion of fucking hedonism, which I realize is not the answer. Like I said, it's fun, but it's not going to make you happy. And if you make that your goal, you will be miserable because it's never going to be enough. And you actually won't be confident either. And you won't be super secure because you're chasing something that you're never going to get.
And he had a short run. This is just a follow-up question. This to politics in 2015. I don't know if that was a publicity stunt or not, or something like you were somewhat
around.
Okay, all right.
All
right. Is politics something? Are you talking about like Jake should do it? Like then is that something you're considering?
Yeah, I think I should do it. I think I need to. I don't want to. I absolutely don't want to. The last thing in the fucking world I want to do is be a senator or a congressman and wear a suit, or president would be like the worst of all. But I think somebody has to do it. And I hope that a bunch of people step up and I can just endorse them, because I would much rather that. But I just don't see it happening, honestly. Like I look at our candidates, our presidential candidates are horrendous every time.
I say the same thing.
It's like, it's like bad or worse. And I also feel like everybody that's in Congress right now is there for what can they do for themselves and what can they do for their donors. And I think it's time. I honestly believe if we don't take control of our country in the next couple of years, I think we're completely fucked. I think if Palantir is put in place, I think we are done, and they will squash any kind of resistance, and they will make it impossible to do it by the book. That's what I truly believe.
I don't think that's a crazy theory. Do you know who else didn't want to be a politician and loathed the idea of it?
Who's that?
George Washington. Especially when he had to run for the second time, when he went out to give his speech after winning the second time, he looked and said, "This feels a lot like walking out to a firing squad."
Yeah,
because he knew
no matter what you do, people are going to hate you. They're going to criticize you. That's another reason why I feel like I have a unique pedigree to do this, is because like I've weathered those crazy storms.
Yeah,
like I've got so much negative press.
Yeah, you got a lot of no quit in you. There's some things I didn't get to cover. I really want to cover the Buzz thing, and I do. I respect going through that 2-3 times, and it wasn't because you quit. Didn't even cover the 100-mile bike race you did. That
300,
300, no quit. Didn't cover the run from Las Vegas to LA in 48 hours.
That was a bike. That was
a bike. That was also a bike.
I didn't run that.
I was like, that was really far for that. But you biked that. I think it was a 48-hour. You got in 32. 32. And did you have Rabdo on that one? But anyway.
I didn't, dude. And the funny thing is that actually. I went into every bike shop and they all laughed me out of the store. But the only person that thought I could do it was Lance Armstrong.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I truly believe that I think I could have turned it and done it back if I had another 48 hours to do the 300 back. And he offered me, this fucker, I knew I should have taken it. He offered me 10,000 to $1 million on the turnaround, and that would have been the glory.
Okay.
That would have been, because I had a lot of time. I wouldn't have gone so hard in the last few miles for sure, but I definitely had enough time, I think, to turn it. I don't know, but I think I could have done it.
And my last, I think, challenge to the audience would be this: there are, I say obviously, but I care less about your money. I care less about the girls you've been with. I care less about your lifestyle, your followers. I had you on the show. Because when I looked further into you, this no quit characteristic of you, I think, is always a manly trait and something that should be talked about and admired. And whether that's in business, whether that's in your beliefs, and whether that's in the military, you truly have been an example of that for a long time. And even though I don't agree with your stance in Israel and the Jews, I think that it is, you have to be fearless, and I appreciate that. Appreciate your fearlessness and your open-mindedness towards the debate. And so I looked at those virtues of you as a man, and that was the person that I'd like to sit across the table to and talk. So thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, the one thing I'd like to add is just for your audience, as far as the no quit stuff, is to repackage your bad traits like insecurity and use that as fuel to allow you to keep going. Like harness the fuck you, I'm going to show you, as like a reason to keep going and never stop.
Yep, I absolutely agree. Dan, thanks so much, brother.
Yeah. Good chat.